Let me introduce the panelists for today. Takashi Kunimoto, CEO, ASOVISION Incorporated, Visiting Professor, Ritsumeikan University. CEO of TOKI Incorporated, Yuko Inamasu. President of Original Inc. and President of Time Out Tokyo Incorporated, Hiroyuki Fushitani. And then the other panelist is coming in online, Mr. Gaku Tomikawa, representative of Tomikawa Company Limited, a local producer. The facilitator is Tsukada, Arina Tsukada, curator, editor. Over to you, Tsukada-san.
Thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Arina Tsukada, a curator and editor. Thank you very much for spending time with us online. We will be talking about the new tourism age. Regarding ICF, Alternative Visions is discussing the post-COVID age, and we will be considering the alternative scenes in the post-COVID age. In 2019, I had the opportunity to participate in 2019. This is the second time I am taking part. And the theme allocated to me is tourism, and I'm wondering why this is the case. However, I have been involved in projects related to this field, and in the Japanese regional areas, there are hidden assets that can be brought to bear. So I'm very grateful for being involved on this in this theme. So the theme is the new age of tourism. So before discussing the new age, we have to consider the old age as well. I'm sure this will also be discussed today. According to my view, briefly, what I would like to share with you is that in the past 10 years in Japan, we have been trying to promote the economy with the inbound tourism, with the Olympic Games and Paralympic Games. There was keen interest of having many tourists visit various regions in Japan to spend money in these regions. So it was a very simple and very compelling, strong story. However, because of the advent of COVID-19 and Olympic and Paralympic Games were not able to have visitors from overseas. Therefore, it is clear to everybody that this course is not sustainable. We need more people to come to Japan and spend money in Japan, which is a good thing. However, with that, the resources as well as people and nature of the various regions could be consumed simplistically. This has occurred even prior to COVID-19. Just eating the delicacies of the regions and beautiful scenery can be enjoyed. But that should not be enough. Not just going to the location to consume, and that's it. That is not sufficient. I think there should be a relationship between the visitor and the local regions, whether it be Tokyo or other regions. People talk about the relational population. That is also very important as well. There should be a deeper interaction, and deeper relationship should be established. That is also the objective of tourism. I'm sure that will also be mentioned in the discussion today. Sorry to be long-winded at the outset. I'd like everybody to introduce yourselves one by one. So, Kunitomo-san, please start. Thank you very much. Let me introduce myself very briefly. System engineering is my area of expertise. At the Ritsumeikan University, I'm a visiting professor. In terms of system engineering, in details, value engineering and completion engineering is very important to bring to bear new values and systematically establishing that is the area of my expertise. I also have a company called ASOVISION. Main domain of my company is to create value. We are talking about the new age of tourism. So what kind of values we can provide for society in this new age is what I would like to discuss with you. I'm looking forward to discussing with all of you.
はい、ぜひ国友さんにはその価値
What is the value which probably you are going to talk deeply about? Inamasu-san.
My name is TOKI of my name is Inamasu of TOKI Incorporated. Let me. The company was established in 2014, and since that we have been involved in the tourism business. What we are mainly focused on is inbound high-end visitors is our focus in introducing Japan for promoting experience-based tours are organized, and tour packages are also organized for this purpose. We are trying to curate and customize these tours in order to enable this new system. Something like SaaS has been developed as well. We are working with the travel agencies. They are utilizing our service. I also love traveling. I love to engage in various experiences. I was living in New York when I was small, and then I lived in Tokyo for 1 year. I went to New Hampshire as an international student. Through this experience, I felt that there is a Japan from the overseas perspective and Tokyo from overseas perspective. I think that is very interesting for the people with seasoned eye. We want to introduce Japan better so that the value of Japan can be enhanced, so that people can enjoy Japan in travel. I would like to introduce some examples to you.
Thank you. I hope that you are going to give us a deeper talk as an expert in tourism. Fushitani-san. I am the president of Original Inc. I also serve as the president of Time Out Tokyo Incorporated. I'm mandated to give a mission statement, so I will not go into the details. In 1968, Time Out was released as a city magazine in London. So those who are knowledgeable about tourism will provide information about the city. We call them local experts. The local experts compile information which is valuable to all the visitors from outside. And they always take use or time out for enjoying the stay. About the 323 cities are covered globally by this time out. And we have accumulated a lot of know-how through the experience. We call it the worldwide viewpoint. And by applying that, we are going to dig into the attractions of Japan. We call it interpretation. In a clear to understand message, we communicate them into the world so that the rest of the world will be able to understand the attractions of Japan. I'm supposed to talk about the more details about this mission.
では続いて、
Tomikawa-san is joining us from Tono. Tomikawa-san, over to you. Thank you. My name is Tomikawa of Tomikawa Company Limited. I'm from Tono City, and starting from 2016, I have been engaged in communicating the attractions. And Tono is the one of the origin source of folklore studies, and I also personally experience local dancing. So I have been staying close with the local people, and by doing so, I'm trying to send out the message. I'm hoping that I will be able to enjoy the talk with all of you. Tomikawa-san, thank you very much.
3日前
Thank you very much. Up until 3 days ago, I was in Toa, and I was engaging with Tono-san, looking at that region. a tour or event centering on that area. A new type of experience tour has been planned. I hope that we can discuss this with you as well. Now, without further ado, as Fushitani-san has already mentioned, we are going to be discussing the new age of tourism. So we would like to have Fushitani-san to start.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, I think I would like to lay the groundwork for today's discussion. How the situation has changed on tourism following the outbreak of the pandemic. Please look at this video. Thank you. And after following this video, I would like to share with you my presentation on proposals. And today, 3 essential matters for next tourism. There are 3 of them which I would like to share with you today. First, creating mutual benefits of the tourists and local citizens. Second, responding to the diversified objectives and styles of tourism. And if there's going to be ongoing diversification, tourism resources are going to diversity as well, as you can capture in the video. Not only tangible ones, but also intangible assets should also be diversified or provided, just like probably which is going to be taken up in the talk of Tono. Intangible assets or values and should be communicated. And thirdly, that the unique values of the local history, culture, and lifestyle need to be discovered and how they are going to be provided in the specific form. Some of simple examples which I would like to share with you based on those 3 essential items. First, the creating mutual benefits of tourists and local communities. Under the pandemic, this is something that is happening in the midst of the pandemic. The old town in Amsterdam was suffering from over-tourism, flooded with a large number of tourists. And that was what it was, about 19 million tourists coming over to this place every year before the pandemic. But with the COVID-19, those tourists stopped to come in. So the place was empty of tourists. And the mayor made a visit in the old town, and he found that there were no facilities available to the local citizens. Therefore, the ordinance is going to be modified and revised, and so not only shopping area for tourists, but also the shops necessary for local citizens is now being considered and to be introduced. And the second example of item 1. It was before the pandemic. This was a campaign and taken by the South African tourism agency. It's your country, enjoy it. And that was the motto. Microtourism was encouraged during the pandemic period in Japan. So similar to that, local attractions need to be highlighted under this program. As you may know, South Africa was used to have apartheid. So local citizens were barred from freely traveling. And there is such the problems persist. So most of the people believed that traveling means going abroad. But younger people started to travel inside the country under this motto. This is one of an article that was carried in some article, the Condé Nast Traveler. About 61.3 billion yen, that was the amount of the tourism, but this was lost because of the pandemic. And they shifted the attention to the local citizens, but they failed to develop the domestic market. There was an issue of transportation as well as visa issuance problems, because most of the efforts are focused on overseas travelers. Safari, that is one of the tourist spots. Well, local people will go one day, but if it is going to be a long stay travel, for example, for American travelers, the local people are supposed to entertain them, and that was how the overall structure is. That means local people would not really like it. And therefore, that needs to be changed, and that is exactly what is happening in South Africa today. The second point, responding to the diversifications of objectives and styles of tourism. Speaking of diversification, as you may know, that under the pandemic, you were kind of freed from time constraints. Workation is one of the faddish terms that emerged in this new age. And so that also means that people have different ideas when they travel around. The meta-tourism is one of the topics that I have been engaged in. This concept of meta-tourism is going to be the one I would like to introduce. What does meta-tourism stand for? You will be able to understand it if you take a look at this slide, although it is difficult to understand. For example, GPS information. If there is one data, different kinds of data can be laid on, as you can see those layers. For example, Takemura is located in Chiyoda Ward at Tokyo. It is a sweet candy shop. I'm sorry, I can't read it well. The first layer is age manju. It is famous for those the buns. And famous novelist Shotaro Ikenami wrote an essay about some sweets, and then this store was also introduced. This is supposed to be the second layer. And then Kamen Rider Hibiki, it is a TV series, and it was one of the locations used for that drama. And the Love Live, in the Love Live, one of the characters' house was located in this place. This is another layer. And Poke Stop of Pocket Monster Go. So there are those people who would come here for Poke Stop. That means if there are going to be 100 visitors, it is possible that those visitors have 100 different reasons. This kind of meta-tourism will be able to visualize those differences, and that is the objective. And sorry for the prolonged explanation. The third one is the unique values to be discovered with regard to the community-based history, culture, and lifestyle. This is related to art methods or some good affinity with the art methods. I would like to share some of those examples. The cultural program of Tokyo Olympics, Tokyo Festival Special 30, The Speed of Light is one of the drama programs which was selected. Marco Canare, who is a playwright of Argentina. The senior citizens were invited into this drama in order to depict the personal histories of those elderly people. And at the same time, the area itself is to be surveyed by him in order to come up with a fictional story. And combining them all together, by walking together on street, you visitors will be able to experience the scenes of the drama. I was not able to look at it because of the COVID-19, but the local history can be made visible through this kind of experiment. In the center, this is a German female historians came up with this idea. This is a kind of a tour and to be informed of the history of the female history. What is quite interesting about this program is that historic figures or any specific king story, they can be told in this in ordinary tours, but in this tour, that the unknown female figures are introduced. The female stories, women's stories, and can be communicated to the participants. In collaboration with the schools, this program is used as part of the educational programs. Third one is Ueshiki Project Beat. East Asian Cultural City project. Toshima Ward participated in this. Ueshiki, which you can see across Japan, Kishimojin festival is used as a base, and together with it, Ueshiki's history will be communicated through this experience, and at the same time, multiculturalism in the current ward of Toshima, it is also highlighted through this program, and the visitors will be able to experience both things. I also participated personally. Toshima ward has a Chinese community, and most of the visitors, the karaoke shop that is filled with the Chinese residents, and the Chinese people sing songs in the karaoke stop, and they introduce themselves and explaining why they come to Japan. And the personal stories are told. And by doing so, we will be able to understand the presence of a huge Chinese community. But at the same time, you will be able to see the faces and the personalities of those speakers. And then you can understand what kind of role and that Toshima Award is playing. Now, I'm not saying that the answers we should get answers on those three topics, but I hope that you will be able to touch upon them. And lastly, at the end of these endeavors, what is necessary, in my view, is that the democratization of tourism is necessary. The tourists need to have the decision-making role, not only those visitors, but at the same time, those people who are directly involved in creating tourism, and they need to be empowered. Since the number of tourists is going to increase, so it would also mean the role of DX is going to increase going forward. Thank you very much.
ありがとう。
Thank you very much, Fushitani-san. So very deep issues have been raised. A good food for thought has been presented. I cannot summarize what you have said, but it seems that intangible asset is a key word, as well as relationship with the local inhabitants and DX. So we thought that the word tourism means to view light. And there is a deepness to this concept. So when we talk about tourism, to create a product and to create service are the major focus. But there is also intangible aspect that we should be mindful of. That is my takeaway. Now, from here onward, let's discuss the different aspects. Inamasu-san, please. So please show it in slideshow. Sorry for that trouble. Thank you very much for waiting. Now, I would like to follow up on what has been discussed so far. I would like to talk about the experience or intangible tourism asset. What kind of experiences are being promoted, and the response of the customers, visitors will be presented. And also talk about our aspirations in the utilization of technology. Let me give you some background of our company. We are a travel agency, but mainly focus on cultural experience. We can have 2 hours allocated to us, a very deep tea ceremony, or to have a dialogue with artisan. That is the type of experience we are promoting. We are also nurturing tourism, guide, resources with developers as well as with municipal government. We are working together to develop tourism content. With the advent of COVID-19, since we were focused on the inbound tourism, we have been significantly impacted. We are at the center of this impact. But taking into consideration the track record we have had for 7 years, we thought very hard about what kind of value can be provided. We discussed this internally, and the result is shown here. These are the values that we can provide. We want to focus on inspiration through experience. We have international members. We have many resources that are bicultural. They have experience in various cultures, not only in Japan but also globally. This is leading to fulfilling life. By providing such a rich experience, we hope that people will be able to benefit and increase such people who have this experience, which will lead to further emotional growth. Inspirations can be generated. And with that, we hope that this will nurture respect for culture and lead to innovation. So we want to increase the number of people who receive cultural experience, rich cultural experience, so that it will lead to a better society, more abundant wealth for society. That is the reason why experience is very important, not just real, but also by utilizing digital. Let me give you some examples of what we have done. So total 1,000 people. These are people who are visiting as inbound tourism. We were providing various events as well as experience for overseas tourists. Overseas tourists are very used to diversified travel, especially the high net worth people. They have want to, for example, focus on art or handicraft or Shintoism culture in Japan. So they're very much theme-based in their travel needs. Based on their request, local content can be curated and provide the appropriate narrative so that it can be communicated from guides to the visitors. We also have some single cultural experience, not just eating fushi, but also engaging in dialogue with the sushi chef. The procurement can be shown, what kind of seasonai the chefs have for the ingredients and how it is handled in the restaurant. Hospitality philosophy can be shared. For example, visitors with the small mouth can receive a small piece of sushi to suit their needs. This is the type of experience we have been promoting. This is a sports manufacturer example. For new branding of a new company, they have many influencers. So the utilization of influencers was the focus. So that value of the company can be enhanced. The influencers, in order to retain them, hospitality must be provided to influencers. So hospitality service of Japan can be introduced. This will lead to inspiration so that it can be reflected in the business. So this is an inspirational tour that has been arranged. These are also examples of unique events. Not just going to a restaurant, but rather having a dining experience in an interesting spot, or have a party in an unusual location. Utilizing one's home to provide a party. Heliport can be utilized for such a purpose as well. In Kansai, it was dining experience and can be provided for this one customer. Table setting is prepared for this one visitor's experience. This is also one of event. We have many corporate customers, and when they come, immersive experience of Japanese culture was the theme given to us. So tea ceremony, calligraphy, and Japanese dance, as well as flower arrangement were introduced in one space. The first room will be one theme, and another experience in a different room. So immersive experience can be had in this event. for this customer. Furthermore, as I have mentioned, for individual customers, they are very much focused on FIT. You may not be experienced, you might not know this, but the free independent travel is what the FIT stands for. So one will organize their own travel. When Japanese people go overseas, they will go to JTB, travel agency, or tours are arranged of 30 people, and transportation is provided by bus. But in the United States, that kind of group travel is very limited. But in Asia, there are some such travel, and also in Europe. But U.S. Customers have their own individual needs, so we have to meet these needs. So our focus will be consultation for such travelers. Consultation could take 6 months for demanding customers, and that is including the storytelling as well as the curation aspect. With the COVID-19, we are now very much focused on metaverse. Online experience is being provided. AR, VR experiences are likely to increase going forward. This is what we are also pursuing. I'm sorry that I'm running out of time. Fushitani-san has presented some issues. This has been increasing interest from about 7 years ago. New York Times and BBC Travel have reported on this. Need for diversified travel. New luxury is experience-based travel. That is outlined here. Characteristic of customers will be explained. This is also something that was mentioned by Fushitani-san already. New values are emphasized. And based on those new values, tourism has to be arranged. When we talk about various needs, there could be different attributes of the customers. We might just, but we have to look at not the countries where they are from, but what kind of travel they are experiencing. And the more qualitative aspect must be emphasized. It's meta tourism, or something that is unique to the location is very important. It could be a unique experience that can only be experienced in a certain location. That kind of travel or tourism can be evaluated very carefully, very highly. With the COVID-19, monitor traveling was experienced, and I have been shown contents to introduce to overseas customers. Kansai is trying to promote a yacht marina, and they want to have people visit who are high net worth. But in Kanto, there is also Zushi, which is much better marina. And Kanto people will not go to Kansai for sailing, especially for European people. They also have experience with beautiful marinas, and they have ocean experience that is outstanding. So if they come to marina experience in Japan, it has to be very edgy, or something very unique will be required to entice their interest. To our customers, we are introducing such experience. Therefore, we have to be critical. We don't want to introduce an inappropriate experience. It would be subject to complaints, and customers will never come back to Japan. Therefore, we have to be responsible in providing experience to our customers. For Kansai, if we did not target the high net worth people, it would have been all right. For example, obtaining a sailing license, or it could be promoted as a beginner's experience. That would not be a problem. So when we curate or develop content, we have to consider the target audience, what kind of enrichment we can provide to the target audience is of utmost importance. Lastly, I would like to talk about the travel tech product. As already mentioned today, customer needs are various, and it is very difficult to manage this mentally. Therefore, with the advent of COVID-19, people who can develop travel content is very limited because they have been laid off. Therefore, their knowledge can never be provided to overseas or Japanese tourists going forward because it was all manpower based. But now it is important to document this together with feedback from the customers. If we are able to do that automatically, we will be able to make good travel proposals. We hope that we can expand this service going forward. Thank you.
ございます。
Thank you very much. Having listened to your presentation, well, one of uniqueness is being highlighted. In the past, it was a package product, but more oriented to performance. That is one of the new features I can recognize. Thank you very much. Next, the speaker is from Tono, Mr. Tomikawa. Over to you, Tomikawa-san. Thank you. Allow me to share the slides. And in fact, I still have a vivid memory of the most recent events, and I would like to share with you my programs and my efforts at the local level. First, the introduction of Tono City. About 3.5 hours in travel, and the population is 26,000. Iwate Prefecture is as large as Shikoku Island, and so in the center of Iwate Prefecture, Tono is located. There are 7 routes being linked, and it can isolate itself from the rest of Japan, surrounded by the mountain range. Tono is famous for Mr. Yanagida's book, who started the folklore studies. About 111 years ago, he wrote this book called Tono Monogatari, Kappa, Zashikarashi Tengu, or Water Spirit, and how the local population faced animals. And they were captured in the 190 sub-stories. I migrated to Tono in 2016, and this is my office. And I would like to introduce some of the projects that may fit the theme of today's discussion. I moved to Tono in 2016. I'm working as a local producer. For the past 7 years before that, I worked as a producer, and I worked at the office in Akasaka. Before I turned 30, I decided to move into Tono to work as a local producer. Ando Tadao, who is a famous architect, who designed a children's book forest in Tono, and I serve as a creative director for that facility. And with regard to my own activities, design by culture is my focus. I am an expert on design because I used to work for the design firm. But when it comes to the culture, history and culture and folklores, I was really intrigued by them. And I'll sit on the boards of different committees relating to culture, local culture, intangible assets and history history and culture. Those are the areas I have been deeply involved in as well. Today, our focus is tourism. I'm not an expert in tourism, but how to communicate the attractions of the local culture. In these efforts, I started to get involved in the tourism sector as well. When it comes to the Tono story or Tono Monogatari, which I briefly talked about, so my focus is design by culture, and I have my own teacher, 78 years old, who is an expert in local history. I met him in the first year. As you may know, he is really interested in the local stories of ghosts. For example, the places where the water spirit was located, and the other the fairies stories. I think it is also can be applied into other regions. The experts and the curators are supposed to play the central role, but therefore it is difficult for them to communicate the message externally. And that is the same case in Tono City. So my impression was that the local culture was closed. Therefore, my new role, was to open a new pathway into local culture. And I started my work in 2014. At the field work as a tour guide, about 500 the visitors I took care of as tour guide. And this is a drama which was produced by myself and together with the school children. So the history of the land is to be communicated externally, and coming up with the ideas of souvenirs. We also have Tono Festival. I have been involved in the branding of that local festival. In the latter half of my presentation, I will come back to this topic as well. Shishi Odori, or tear dancing. It is a local dance. And you can see myself in the costume dancing this deer dance about 4 years. This was the dance dedicated to the dead deer and the dead ancestors. And I have been involved together with the local people. 2 examples I would like to share with you today in my presentation. As Arina-san mentioned, the enjoying the light that the Chinese character of tourism stands for. So what is the light in this term? I think the light itself changes as time passes by. Therefore, we need to redefine the light. So what is it, the local light we can highlight? And such a project is now underway. Iwate, the Last Frontier, is a new project which started last year. So this photo shows the members of the project. Iwate is a vast area, so working together with people who are working locally. Iwate or Tohoku may not come to the fore, speaking of the history of Japan, but animism before the introduction of Buddhism and the prayer toward the large stone in the nature, this kind of a tradition persists. And so such an experience is being provided unto the visitors. That's the objective of the Last Frontier project. This year, as a kickoff event, there was an exhibition. Nambu Magaria is a house together with the humans and horses. So this is the scene inside. What was exhibited on this occasion, 2 of them, Igarashi Daisuke, who is a painter, who wrote a cartoon about the ghosts and children, invisible entities. are the ones that he tries to draw, and together with Igarashi-san, that the hunter, a traditional hunter who lived about 400 years ago, was drawn. And I'm writing a story, original story, and together with Igarashi-san, we are working on this. And another person is Everett Kennedy Brown, who is a photographer who is applying so-called Ambro type photographing. He has been living in Japan over 30 years. For example, this looks like a very old photo, but it was just taken a few months ago. And so photos of artisans, local artisans, were also exhibited this way. So these are the collaborators, and together with Everett-san. And in this last frontier project, it is a project to let the visitors being exposed to the local history. And another one, it is another example which I would like to share with you, is together with Matsukawa Ren-san. This is quite a recent project. Together with Redefining the Light, another one is reconnecting to the land. This is going to be a very important keyword going forward. One of the events is called Tono Lantern Tree Festival. Toroge is an unfamiliar word for you. There's going to be a lantern tree to be installed in order to welcome those ancestors' soul come back into their families' houses. So not only the dead, but also the visitors from outside, artists and creators, and they can interact with each other at this location. And this is a project that was launched last year together with Arina-san. This event was completed most recently. And the Shishi Odori, or deer dancing, was presented. And those visitors from outside experience personally them. And Norio Akasaka, who is a folklore the study expert, and the film was shown and being exposed to intangible values. It is a 3-day tour event, as a matter of fact. And this event was organized by ourselves. And Tohoku or Tono or Tohoku and the Tono has a very unique history and tradition of praying for the dead and ancestors. So this kind of hands-on experience was also provided. So I'll show you some other slides and the photos such as deer dancing. And the visitors were really attracted by the tune and following dancers. And the performance was done like this. And after that, the creators and artists performed all these things, and DJ and other artists showed their performances, like this one. The participants and artists and creators, I was just talking about exploring the light from that viewpoint, things that have not been recognized yet, even local people. And so the participants, as well as the staff, and all the performers and creators and artists, and together with them, we were in the journey to explore such light. I hope that this kind of event can be organized further on. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. So, I'm sure that people have received a lot of input listening to the presentations, and would like to hear from Kunitomo-san later as well. Now, as mentioned by Tomikawa-san already, several days ago we were involved in an event in Tono. And I was just wondering, once again, what our focus was in this event. For participation in the tour, eating delicacies and enjoying the traditional culture, and people to enjoy, and also to have a connectivity with the spiritual animals. I think people were able to participate in the story of Tono. So they have been invited, not as a tourist. They have been invited to this location. That seemed to be the message. Inamasu-san has also mentioned that it is not just a one-off performance. Well, it is a one-off performance that has been created together. That is the reason why it is not just the recipient of the service and the provider of service, but the tourists as well as people, local citizens, are on an equal footing. As mentioned at the very beginning, the relationship between the tourists and the local citizens is very important, and I think that is where the greatest value can be provided. What do you think is the best way forward? Fushitani-san, please address this. I would say that in the Japanese locations, there are dormant assets. It is not really sleeping, but it is the tradition that has been handed down over the years. This is where value can be created. And Tomikawa-san and Inamasu-san can go and develop it as a curator to think of ways to convey the excitement. I think that is how the tour has been created. Through these processes, in the local community, we can also develop other tourism contents as well to provide to the world. We have experts who are involved in the World Heritage registration. And when we look at that aspect, there is too much emotional views that are local, and when we try to convey this to the world, it is too much. It is very difficult to communicate globally. But Tomikawa-san has been involved, and a curation process is also included, and the local value can be curated for different areas and communicated accordingly. That is one step. And for the participants in this process, they will have different impressions. There will be different inspirations gained. Perhaps it may differ to the intention of the curator, but that is also forgiven. It can be expanded thereafter. That means that the participants will be able to convey what they have experienced. This can be expanded globally. I hope that can be achieved. In the English editing team, went to Tono because of a certain client. There was a foreign person involved. She came back, and she was very impressed by the kappa, the spiritual animal, water spirit. And so he went to Kappa-bashi thereafter. Because of Yanagida Kunio's narrative, is that perhaps more in-depth story should be appreciated, but that doesn't matter. The water spirit can provide the opportunity because it's a long tail initiative. We want everyone to be fully immersed. So I think you have to accept this widely. That will be the key to success.
As Fushitani-san said, it is difficult for local people to identify what are the attractions because the third party, for example, the outsider's view, will be able to facilitate that kind of approach. A new method in this way can be applied. I think you are being engaged in this kind of curation activities, and the Zushi, and then the Kansai and stories. What is a marina? Instead of that, the local uniqueness can be curated, and I think that is important in your work. What is supposed to be the highlighted issues? For example, something that you have not intentionally recognized. What is the important aspects of curation in these cases? It is going to be a kind of a repetition compared to the rest of the world, whether the attraction is truly unique or not. For us, we target overseas travelers, so they usually spend 10 hours to come over to Tokyo. So it's very precious 1 week. If they experience the things they can do in their own local communities, then it is going to be quite disappointing, not only for us, but also for them. They will not be able to fully enjoy the stay in Japan. That's something I would like to avoid by all means. Of course, things differ depending on the culture. Japan viewed by Americans, by Chinese, by Europeans, so their unique aspect of perspective differs. Compared to their own cultures. They usually compare the two. Therefore, we have to make proposals based on that kind of a comparison. And how the narratives are going to be provided, because they have to fit the taste of those travelers. Even if we emphasize the attractiveness of attractiveness, but if it does not fit their needs, and then the attractiveness will not be able to be communicated. So how the narrative is going to be built is important. Translation is something very important. If it fits perfectly, everything is going to be linked on its own. The tourists will be able to have enrich imagination. I think the overseas tourists are more sensitive and imaginative, like some of the simplified the richness or enriched simplicity, wabi-sabi, those values, when they are exposed, they are going to ask deeper questions in their experience. So that is how we would like to induce them to do so. Thank you very much. And Kunitomo-san, I hope that you will be able to respond to those comments. Kunitomo-san, would you please elaborate on them? Any comments? I have a lot of questions I would like to raise for those two speakers. As a matter of fact, Inamasu-san, I think that one of the key words here is the experiential value. And from your viewpoint and based on your work, now I am strongly motivated to ask for help from you, and I think the overseas rich people, I wonder what kind of the concept of value do they usually have. This is the first question, and the second question is that the affluent people and the ordinary people, I think the Inamasu-san's project is going to be very pricey. So it is going to be a kind of a hurdle for ordinary people to pay the price. So how is it going to be the perception different between those two groups? I think through marketing, for example, in the case of overseas travelers, they would like to enjoy bespoke experience, nothing that can be found on the internet. So when they go to Kyoto, the photograph of Ryoanji Temple, instead of visiting that, if it is too crowded, then they would like to go to a more temple that is not crowded. So maybe we will be able to expand that kind of experience into the Japanese tourists as well. And the Japanese tourists usually would like and to learn from the other tourist experiences. I think experiential value, speaking of that, and the Japanese tourists are easy and to be persuaded, for example, by this kind of experience for them, that they feel that they're enjoying, but sometimes it was not the case. I think there are so many stories of such. When it comes to the experiential value, for the past several years, we've been talking about that. But whether the supreme experience is offered or not, I think there should be the limited choices available to the tourists. Therefore, it is quite rare for me to ask for such opportunity at the travel agency. So I usually contact my friends and the network of my friends and to find that kind of a place. Therefore, going forward, if this kind of thing is going to be solved, richer experience will be provided. I think travel agencies in Japan are relatively large, but those affluent travelers, and they have the so-called travel designer of their own. The medical doctors and the lawyers, they have their trusted travel agents, and that is the established format that they usually use. This kind of format may make inroad in Japan. I think the experience is going to be different depending on the people, so that is also going to be an issue. And Tomikawa-san, I have a question for you as well. Tomikawa-san, out of 1,700 cities and towns, why did you choose Tono City? I think a lot of local governments would like to invite people like you. How come? Why did you choose Tono in the first place?
In fact, I don't know if I can answer this question, but at the launch of the project, I have been invited. That is the reason why I went to Tono in the first place. And I was invited to participate in the project. And I'm from Nagaoka of Niigata Prefecture. I was thinking about going back to Niigata. I went to Gunma University. I was thinking of going to Gunma. But I chose Tono. It was undeveloped yet. And it was a project where people in the same generation were moved to Tono altogether. So I was very much attracted to the people who were moving to Tono together. That was the first motivation. And 78 years old is my teacher in Tono. He thought that I was impressed by the book regarding the Tono stories. That was the inspiration for me, but that was not the case. I hadn't read the book before going to Tono. But everything I saw was very refreshing. And it seems that it was very interesting for me in engaging in the activities, which has led to where I am doing now. With the people who relocated, there is many people. I'm sure the people are thinking about where to relocate. I think intuition can be a very interesting reason for relocation. But we are very impressed by your boldness. Tomikawa-san, you went to a location I was attracted there. And last time I went to Tono was the third time. But it seems that there are many people coming to Tono now. Kunitomo-san, thank you very much for asking the question, which was an interest for the audience. Now, from Kunitomo-san, you have talked about the experience value. So, what is value? I think it's very difficult to define that from the point of view of tourism. I'd like to ask Kunitomo-san to make the presentation now on this topic. How much time do we have available? And there's also discussion, so please take about 10 minutes for your presentation. Now, I'm talking about happiness, folklore, and tech to weave a new story, which is a necessary component of the new tourism age. There are 4 areas that I'd like to cover in this area. First is happiness research, the state-of-the-art happiness research with the COVID-19. It seems that happiness concept has been updated. But then, what is the values related to this topic? A second area is also the utilization of technology, because we are making so many mistakes in the utilization of technology. So I'd like to speak to this topic as well. A third point is the boring story formulation. So boring story also has common factors. I would like to address this as well. The next point is the redefinition of tourism. Tomikawa-san talked about the redefinition of light. In fact, I also have a section on the definition of tourism. I'd like to cover that as well. First of all, let me talk about the state-of-the-art happiness research. Currently, there is a shift being made from happiness to well-being. The focus is shifting. In the area of research, what is happiness? It is emotional, and it's a moment of happiness. Therefore, in the conventional tourism, staying 1 night, 2 days, this is leading to happiness. But in the new age of tourism, I believe increasingly there is a need for well-being. Sustainable happiness of the mind and body will be required. I think this will be increasingly required. So well-being research is hot topic at the moment. This is because of the prevalence of smartphones and IoT. The input data is increasing significantly for the mind and body, so data log can be taken. Second driver is related to the fact that there is a review of the definition of well-being. Redefinition has been made in terms of sustainable happiness as well as psychological factors. How this is being updated is also a very interesting point to consider. So, at what times will well-being definition be reviewed? Do you know when this is going to be, Tsukada-san? So, it is the happiness as a child and sustainable happiness now are different. So, what is the difference? How is it different is very important. I don't know if it's correct or not. When we were small, we were impressed by what is being presented by the mass media. There was a major story and having a luxurious trip when we earn money. I think that is what we were focused on. But now there is more focus on well-being, so it is more individualized. Furthermore, it's not a major story, but a more smaller story is required. In terms of values as well as well-beings, tend to be difficult to be defined, but in fact it can be done. I would like to communicate that to you. So when will it be reviewed? With the changes in social situation, the values of people can undergo significant change. What can be the trigger? Currently, we are facing the world's largest pandemic. COVID-19 is running rampant simultaneously globally. This is when the definition of happiness will be subject to review. Because simultaneously the update of values are taking place. That is the reason why it's a good juncture. In terms of well-being researchers, it is a very important milestone. Against this backdrop, what about the case in Japan? In 2011, there was also significant progress made in well-being research. This is called the happiness 4 factors. I think it is also provided on the internet. Takashi, professor of Keio University, has defined that happiness comprises 4 factors. First is self-actualization and growth. Having an objective and working toward the realization of that goal, which will drive growth. The second is the factor of connectivity and appreciation. Having connectivity, bonding with other people, and the relationship between the other is an important factor. Third is positiveness and optimism. To be able to be positive all the time and to sustain this positiveness is very important. Fourth factor is independence and my pace. Following one's own pace and not wavering even other people are critical. In 2011, what has occurred in Japan? In the case of Japan, the Great East Japan earthquake occurred. At that time, there was an update made for the values in Japan. Now, I would like to share with you the state of the research of well-being research in the advent of COVID-19. It was implemented in July of 2021, so it is very much up to date. Kitashima Chiho-san, in 2021 July, it was published. And now there are 8 factors for happiness. First is acceptance of one as is. Second is forgiveness and self and forgive others. Third is empathy and appreciation. Fourth is purpose of life. 5 is faith and spirituality. 6 is conscious for internal and external self. It has been relegated from 1 to 6. 7 is challenging. 7 is challenging for and willingness for growth. This has been relegated from 1 to 7. And 8 is tolerance and cooperation with others. So there are 8 factors now from 2011 to 2021. In the past decade, how has this changed? Will be explained. Compared to 10 years ago and the current state. Whether it's factor 1, factor 2, the internal soul searching has become very important. The factors are growing significantly in this area. So far, it was an achievement of a goal to have connectivity with others. It was always being conscious of others, even my pace, maintaining my pace. Vis-a-vis the others, but I think it's more internal. Internal fulfillment is of utmost importance in terms of well-being currently. Now let's put this in the context of tourism. From about 5 years ago, to look good on Instagram is coming to the fore. This is externalization. It's a peak. It has peaked out. Now we are focused more on internalization, and this is increasingly called for in the context of tourism. Let me give you an example of this result. This is becoming important not only in Japan, but also in the United States as well. Proof of concept projects and research are underway. From this year to next year, the results will be published. So please search research papers on the topic of well-being. So the erroneous technology utilization will be covered. Japan is very much behind in terms of DX, whether it be municipal governments as well as for tourism sector. Technology is yet to be utilized fully. With acceleration, the abundance of one's mind and society can be enhanced, but people are not aware of this. Why are we always behind in terms of utilization of technology? Let me give you one example to illustrate this point. Even though there is a lack of basis, there is a tendency to apply that without basis. POC projects are underway because of budget being earmarked, but it is not even a proof of concept. It is accumulation of useless examples. Now, there is an absence of hypothesis generation in POC. There are regional measures without a sense of purpose arising one after another. First and foremost, you have to have a hypothesis. Indicators must be established, and evaluation should be made for the achievement of these objectives. But it seems that people are rushing to do these projects, or compelled to conduct a project because of the time limitation. Let me give you one example. Regional currency is being called for, but it is not taking root. Second point is the hometown tax payment system. People do not think of providing tax to one's hometown. It is only to receive rewards from the municipalities. That is a criteria of making decision. Or inhabitants' tax will be deducted. Therefore, it's just allocation. There is no longing for a hometown. It is only looking. It's becoming a e-commerce site, if you will. And the third point is go to travel. There is a discount for the accommodation expense, and coupons are provided. People are using this because it tends to be evaluated as good value. But even without the coupons, people will be willing to travel. If you have a coupon that is common, and as well as the currency, the local currency can be combined. During the travel, 3,000 yen can be encouraged to be used. So it's like a royalty. It's like a royalty system. People will tend to spend if there is an expiration date. So the expiration will encourage people to travel to that location again. So one after another, measures are being implemented without a hypothesis. Therefore, improvement is required. Now, I was wondering, go to travel coupons, what is the expiration of this coupon? But it's very difficult to evaluate this. I can't find information. Therefore, I believe that there should be a good hypothesis made. Indicators, however, is uncertain. Therefore, improvement cycle is not being implemented. We have to have a better cycle in place. So it seems that people are compelled to do applications and want to do VR even without a basic foundation. First and foremost, the basic foundation must be established for the local regions. This should be the focus. Knowledge should be shared so that improvement can be made. There is potential in this area. I hope that improvement can be made. Now, I would like to talk about the structure of boring stories. This is also a very important aspect that I want to share with you. What is a story? This is very important topic to be discussed. And we can consider this from the perspective of architecture design. First of all, there is a physical design, and the other is functional design. So these are the two components of the story. What does this entail? For example, for a story, in the case of Japanese language, it's a combination of the Japanese alphabet from A to Un. So it's just a combination of these letters that will lead to a story. But what about the functions and design? To the combination of the alphabet, we have to add the emotional aspect as well. Is it for people to cry, or is it for people to become angry? This emotional aspect is also very important, which can be enabled by the functional design, whether it be in novels or drama. Or Tomikawa-san used to work for advertising agency, so brand is also very important in this process. Inamasu-san mentioned that the high net worth people coming from overseas, is it just a unique experience or not, is very important factor. It's similar. So when we talk about stories, it's just so much abundantly available. We don't know whether there's a good story or not. So people are very sensitive toward the quality of the story. Now, what is a story? I believe that it is a lie. It doesn't have to be lofty. It can just be a lie. It's very similar to Tengu or Kappa, the water spirit. It's not true, but we can give that. We can establish this as given. Murakami Haruki's Salim Award was presented. He said he was asked about what is a novelist. He said that to create a story by weaving lies. This is same for politicians. They also lie, diplomats as well as military leaders and the car dealers and people always lie. Lies are prevalent all over society. But when a novelist will provide a story based on lies, and it can be subject to evaluation when it is unreal and unique. There is also the answer that is provided by Murakami Haruki, so you can look into that. On my part, I feel that when we experience local stories, I always feel they're so boring. I am an adult, so I will act as if I'm impressed, but I'm feeling that it was very boring. There are three factors driving this. First is that the world is full of false narratives. It's a zero-sum game. And rivals are famous authors and playwrights. Against such stories, local stories should surpass that. Second point to be emphasized is that the story or the lie is just a one-off story. So once you go to the location and listen to the story, and that's enough. You don't want to see the sequel. You don't want to visit 2 times, 3 times, or 4 times. This is unfortunate. Therefore, there has to be an update, a sequel to the story. That is lacking today, which is very unfortunate. The third area is then liars' values. In Japan, is negated in Japanese society. They're rejected. So rather than celebrity, it is people who are more full of integrity that are active in the local community. It's a lie, but people feel that it must be true. So some people will question whether the kappa existed or not. And whether it is compelling or not will have exert a difference. And when we go to the local areas, Kojiki and Nihon Shoki, there are many stories relating to these ancient stories. But if you rely on the lies of the past, the ancient past, that will not suffice. It has to be updated to suit the modern times. Whether it is dragon or water spirit, we have to come up with something that will transcend that. There is too much dependence on ancient stories. I think this is also a shortcoming. Against this backdrop, I would like to talk about a similar approach between science and art. Science research and high-quality story. What is the common points? And there are 3 points that I would like to emphasize. Perhaps this is going to be very important to come up with a good narrative going forward. First point is novelty. Second is uniqueness. And the third point is reproducibility. So what is novelty? You go to the local regions and listen to stories of the region. Obviously, it has to be a story or a lie that is unique and never heard before. So it has to be novel. That is very important for foreigners. They want to experience something completely new to them. The second point is uniqueness. As already mentioned by Tsukada-san, you want to be part of the story. That is very important. So you should be able to add to the lie or the story. You want to also be a protagonist in the story. It could be a secondary, a tertiary creation to add new content to the story, to be able to participate and to bring to bear one's originality to the story is also very important in terms of uniqueness. Third point is reproducibility. Stories will be communicated by others. Even people who have never been to Tono, they want to be able to give a compelling story. That is the strongest story. Even without the experience, it can be communicated. It has to be such a compelling story. So by word of mouth, it will be communicated and come back to the original creator. So 3 components are necessary: novelty, uniqueness, and reproducibility. These are important checkpoints in creating a story for the local region. Last point is the redefinition of tourism. So Tomikawa-san, you said something very similar to what I have prepared here. But I didn't steal from you because I saw your presentation for the first time. So what is tourism? The 2 kanji characters, Chinese characters, will be the focus first. First of all, to appreciate something that has light. And Tomikawa-san said that we need to redefine the light. There is also another aspect. If we look at the other side, we have to make sure that what we are seeing will have light. So it's vice versa. So looking at something that is light, and when you see that, when you appreciate that, after that, 3 months later, 6 months later, we can give more shine to this light. So it's like a continuous loop, unlimited loop that is necessary. Who will be the observer? The subject is going to be important. In the past, it used to be the tourism who appreciated what has light. But to give shine to what is being seen is a responsibility of the community citizens. That has been the traditional roles. But this was the definition of the past in terms of tourism. But now, in the new age of tourism, the situation differs. So what should we do? I think we have to make a shift. new definition will be required with a different approach from a system engineering point of view. That will be my focus and interest in the new age. I believe there is going to be a structural shift. So the subject will be reversed. So the role of making things that we see shine will be the responsibility of the tourist, not the community citizen. 2 months or 3 months later, it will motivate them to come back if this is enabled. Now, to appreciate what shines is the responsibility of the community citizens. Making sure that you appreciate what is bright and shining. This is also important for happiness internally by living in the region. You can feel more confident about the community, and you'll be motivated to convey more about the community. So in the new age of tourism, the subject will be reversed, and their respective roles will change. This is the new age of tourism. With that, I would like to conclude.
はい、
Kunitomo-san, thank you very much. A wonderful analysis. Having listened to your presentation, I think many of us have learned a lot. In particular, the tourists as well as the local residents, they are going to be reversed in terms of their roles. I think this is a new approach and interesting story structure. When it comes to the, I think this is exactly what it is about Tono Monogatari. But the Yanagita Kunio wrote a story with the help of a local expert, and meeting water spirits or the fairies and the long-nosed goblins. There are different kinds of rumors and stories. They were put together in the Tono Monogatari stories. On the other hand, if the local people are watching this session, Tono is okay because they're Tono Monogatari. And then other cities, they may have castles, but there are many other localities that do not have any assets in their argument. But instead of just a grand story, but in each local community, there are small stories and narratives, how they are going to be highlighted. That means the tourists will be able to find them. I think that is an important process. Fushitani-san was talking about the German the examples and Argentinian examples. The gender history, for example, that is the negative aspect of the history, but that is gaining attention. I think that is an important point in my view. Would you please elaborate on that aspect, if you may, if you can? The local tourist attractions, how they are going to be picked up, to put together, and to present them and to overseas tourists. That kind of a presentation is frequently done. As has been mentioned, we interact with local people. On those occasions, what is the message to be told to the international community? Well, most of them would say that we don't have such good stories. In most cases, and that's how it turns out. But starting from the point, if you're going to dig into further, we identify many things. For example, a Shirakawa area in the southern Fukushima prefecture, and we organized a workshop with the local citizens. In the first workshop, I also participated, and they all responded that there was no such tourist attraction. But we started the conversation, and at one point, that in Shirakawa, the bonfire can be possible, not in Tokyo though. And so, and then starry sky is so wonderful. And that's a good story. And then if we're going to start talking about that, they come up with new ideas, one after another. That kind of situation happens. And I was talking about the meta-tourism in my own presentation. Sumida Meta-Tourist Art Festival is being organized right now. And the Ishiyama-san, and who is a person who is closely following the situation of electric poles and the utility poles, and then this person takes photos with such utility poles. And Sumida is known for those the utility poles and electric wires, power wires, and then this person was studying the relationship between Sumida and power wires, and then she was really interested in the copper wires, and the Sumida was the origin of such copper wires. More specifically, the person named Furukawa was the one who created this, and then Furukawa they set up a company called Furukawa Electric. So that kind of new approach is different. Therefore, even if local citizens are not, can't identify such attractions, other people, outsiders, may be able to do so. Thank you very much. So I think the viewpoint should be changed in order to identify hidden attractions. And on the other hand, Kunitomo-san gave a definition of well-being, which was quite interesting to me. And in this kind of a turning point of a paradigm shift, for example, the Great East Japan earthquake and the pandemic, and the world is now making a drastic change. I think this is an era of unhappiness to us, so to speak. But at the same time, we can easily forget all those things. A large number of people died through this process. We cannot forget this tragedy and just talking about tourism. And I think this is something that we have to reflect upon. Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics, and that was supposed to be an occasion for encouraging the reconstruction of the earthquake-stricken areas. We organized a talk show on that occasion. Akasaka Norio, who is a folklore study expert, and on that occasion he said, which I clearly remember, for example, Shishiodori deer dancing, that was a traditional dancing in the local community, and they were talking about how to protect the tradition, whether that is defined as a tradition to be preserved, but it is deeply rooted in the spirituality of the local community. And after the East Japan earthquake, this expert was working around in the stricken area. And those areas were also known for deer dancing. And that they lost everything they owns, but that the very first thing that they tried to find was the gears for deer dancing. And then that the elderly were able to be relieved to see the resumption of the deer dancing. So those who survived and those who died, the souls are supposed to be pray. They prayed for the souls of all of them, and all of us, including the artists, listened to that story, and then on the next day we saw the deer dancing. So there was such a whole story that was linked, that the Tono is known for spirits and the fairies, but it was the community where a lot of people died as well. I think this kind of asset in the form of a narrative should be passed on. Sorry for a long story.
Well, regarding Shishodori, that's a very interesting point to make. And in fact, they do it in the Bon summer holidays as well, to pay homage to the people of the past, people who are deceased. But it can really calm your mind. Even though I don't have ancestors in the region, it calms me and because the diseased spirits are coming back to the region during this dance. And since we are have mobile everywhere, to reconnect with the ancestors is very important. It relieves my mind very immensely. It calms me. So it is where death has been accepted, mortality has been accepted, and that is the reason why there is a sense of connectivity and a sense of relief in Iwate, as well as in the Tohoku region. I can feel that very strongly. Kunitomo-san, I would like to ask you a question as well. Fushitani-san as well as Tomikawa-san said, how can we establish a story for the local region? What will be the opportunity to enable this? In Tohoku region, many people lost their lives, so it's not just a matter of reconstruction, but also to establish this connectivity with the people who have lost their lives, especially in the age of pandemic. I think it can be very meaningful, inclusive of other regions as well. How can we find the seed, the appropriate seed for storytelling? It seems that the Japanese traditional customs are such that was not subject to a very detailed network, but it was very local. For example, coldness in the Tohoku region could be tsunami in certain areas. It was a sense of, it was a festival against, to calm the natural disasters. When disasters occur in Japan, when there is a major accident in Japan, like the Shishiodori, in a different way, in a different form, we can accept the tragedy and then convert that to power, empowerment. This is very similar to a comic on TV. By making comedy out of a tragedy can provide richness to people. This is very important. The acceptance is very important. So once we receive, we can also bring to bear resilience and pursue a positive direction. But we have not been able to do this. Just because there is a disaster, we are trying to prevent disasters. Functional action is very prevalent, but pray so that disasters do not occur are considered to be unscientific. People cannot believe that. So this is also reflecting the sickness of current society. Whether it is a funeral or weddings, it is becoming a mere formality. So perhaps we should consider a way of updating funerals. Tono could offer something different in terms of funerals. Tomikawa-san can invent that. I believe that after accepting the status, creating something new could offer different possibilities. If you look at the World Heritage, it can provide a good example. There are intangible World Heritage that is quite prevalent in Japan compared to Europe. Europe is tangible. It's standing there after 700 or 800 years. But in terms of what has been registered in World Heritage, most of that is regarding a religion. Mount Fuji is a World Heritage, talking about the mountain, but it is the mountain worshipping has been recognized as intangible world as an outstanding universal value is the criteria. It is evaluated by the panel that has been selected from the world. Therefore, religion, Japanese traditional religion, is evaluated that way globally. So perhaps a story can be connected to that. Where the empathy comes from could be the source of storytelling. I think that is one way.
True. Kunitomo-san, Fujitani-san, having listened to your views, I think turning the story into a comic story is very interesting. Or a photographer who was living in Iwate Prefecture, one time she said that the affected area by the area that was affected by the disaster, there were a lot of laughs and a lot of earthy jokes. So it is a kind of instinct by the human beings to turn them into a laugh. Not only East Japan earthquake, but also in other regions like Kumamoto, there were those disasters. And it was just one thing, and to protect themselves from natural stories, and not just telling the sad stories, turning them into an entertainment or a laughs. I think that is quite unique to the Japanese entertainment methodology. Therefore, instead of just ignoring the sad story, communicating them in a different way. Well, we are running out of time. So from that viewpoint, there is one question raised here from the audience. I think decentralization is local autonomy is a big issue. There are a lot of failed efforts in local communities. How we are going to reflect upon them going forward? This is a question. Therefore, entering a new age of tourism, that is okay, and to approach this new age. But there are those local communities and that cannot rely on this new age of tourism. So maybe starting from you, Fushitani-san. I think at the outset of Kunitomo-san's presentation, there was a big transformation with regard to the set of values. For example, Great East Japan earthquake, that is going to serve as a turning point. In fact, overseas, that kind of the value set changes. The past experiences, they have not been fully highlighted. At the time of the launch of Time Out, it was the global financial crisis. Just one after that, I launched a Time Out. And in those years, from goods to events, or from products and to experience, and that was the faddish term. And then after pandemic, what is going to be the new thing that would come around? As Inamasu-san mentioned, I think that there are those things that have been taking place already in the rest of the world. At the time of the global financial crisis, the excessive spending was the cause. So instead of excessive spending, and that the experience should be highlighted, and that called the spend shift. That is the title of a book that was made popular. In the case of Japanese inbound policy in Japan, inviting as many people as possible in order to increase the size of sales. I think in the rest of the world, the set of value is changing. Therefore, we also need to think about how local life and the local economy is going to be enriched, in addition to providing enriched experience and to the visitors. Therefore, the happiness of those two parties should have started 10 years ago. In fact, on this topic of a new age of tourism, I think it should have been done around 2008, 9, and 2010. Therefore, from that viewpoint, the past failures that we are talking about today are related to mass tourism version that prevailed in the past Japan. But we have to reflect upon them to go into the next step. Therefore, I think the discussion that we have been engaged in today, we have to bring them into local communities like Tsukada-san and the Tomikawa-san's and stories. I think with them we need to talk about those things with the local citizens. And then, Inamasu-san, I think you have been making presentations with these on those values and to local governments. But sometimes they may be quite different from the past practices. Some people and some local governments may feel uncomfortable. So how do you explain those new approaches and to local governments and local citizens? The traditional and established set of values owned by those local governments. How are you going to respond to them? In fact, the experiential value, which we will be able to offer. For example, the senior high school, the school trips, like them. That means that they have to put necessary staff on the way and to arrange this kind of a tour. But instead of that, the experience facility may be constructed, but how are going to be the interactions with local citizens, and what is the history behind it that the consumers will not be able to sense them? So it is going to be an opposite experience or a negative experience that they will gain through this kind of a thing. So if that is going to be that, it is going to be just a one-off event, would not be able to continue. If we are going to invite individual tourists, that they have to turn them into repeaters. If the tax money is going to be used, the tax money should be recouped. Therefore, the attractions of local communities, they have to be fully discovered and communicated, and the people that are going to be involved in these efforts and should be fluent in communicating the attractions, and sometimes they are not good at it. Therefore, I think suggestions should be given to local people. And if interesting people come over to them, they will be more trained in the communication skills. Thank you very much.
So we are running out of time very quickly. It's very unfortunate. But we could discuss technology amongst us for another hour. So, Kunitomo-san, based on what we discussed, can you talk about the new age of tourism going forward? Now, we are in the age of new tourism. New definition is being defined. It's not just sightseeing, but rather involvement is necessary, not just one time, but it could be once a year on a sustainable basis. This interaction is very important in Japan. We have been emphasizing interaction of people, but there is also interaction of people and the location, the regional area. I think that will become increasingly important. I think that is one of the conclusions coming out of the discussion today. Tomikawa-san from Tono, please talk about the direction going forward. Now, having relocated here, I have realized that for Tono City, the people who are involved are the people in the city hall, the tourism division. And these are the people who are from this region. And so there is a structural problem as well. So they are not objective. We need people who have an objective perspective involved in this area. So there could be objectivity and subjectivity interacting with each other and to communicate better the local region. So I hope that people will come to the different locations to fulfill such a role going forward. Now, I am not an expert, but being involved in this, it seems that because we are not expert in tourism, there is a special role that we can play. Therefore, I would like to be more involved in tourism. But I'm sure the audience realize this as well. In terms of tourism, as well as municipal government could be involved, could be viewing this. But there are also other people. But anyone can be involved. Anyone can be the driving force for promoting tourism. That is my impression. So we have run out of time now. So we'd like to bring this to close now. Fushitani-san, Inamasu-san, and Kunitomo-san, and Tomikawa-san online. Thank you very much. This was Tsukada, serving as a facilitator. Thank you very much for your attendance today.